The following accounts have been submitted by subscribers. These stories are claimed to describe true events. I ask you to listen in good faith and decide for yourself what to believe. These are a series of events that have spanned over at least 20 years of my life. It is what I can only describe as alien abduction. It began in the summer of 1995 in Bright, Indiana. There was quite a bit of unidentified aerial phenomenon that I had seen, and then one night, my family described witnessing a blue light filling the entire house. I am the only one with no memory of it. My memory from each of the events I'm about to describe is fractured. I believe this is due to a dissociative coping mechanism. Because of what I have experienced, I cannot always remember, but I do suffer from night terrors, and I attack anyone who touches me in my sleep out of fear. After the summer of 1995, as the years went by, the memories began to come back. At first, I remembered beings, the beings who were taking me. Large black eyes and grey skin which oddly never felt warm. Whilst my memory of them is always a bit blurry, the incident was clear. I had seen my door open and tried to hide under the blanket, but they grabbed my ankle and dragged me throughout the house and out the door. The smell and feel of the carpet as they took me still comes through strong. Where they took me, I do not know. All I can remember is that it was cold and there were metal surfaces. There, they examined me. The exam is where I only get bits and pieces, strapped to a cold metal surface while they use needles and cut me open. A bright light shining in my face made it hard to make out any more details in the room. This happened multiple times. They never spoke words. I've only ever picked up feelings, which are never malevolent, only indifferent. Or even feeling annoyed, possibly due to my own reactions of absolute terror. These memories kept surfacing, with new ones coming every few years. Eventually I served in the United States Air Force in the Space Warfare Division out at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. It was there that more memories surfaced of something having been done to my head and throat. At a later time I was examined by a military doctor, and it was then found out that my tonsils had been surgically removed. Except I never had a surgery for that at any point in my life. As far as I was aware, I had tonsils. I even frantically called my parents asking if I'd had them removed. They confirmed I had not. My time in the Space Warfare Division of the Air Force also revealed to me more details about the place the beings had taken me. An odd detail I picked up was the smell from the environment. There is no true way to describe it. The closest thing that I would say that I can even remotely associate it with is the smell of ozone, a very sharp, chemical, heavy smell, which is not very pleasant in the least. I had experienced the smell before in the course of my work, a metal alloy that produced the smell when it came in contact with the air. It is an anti-magnetic alloy that was in foil form. I cannot tell you about the particular device the metal was used in, as that is classified, but I can say that it was heading for low Earth orbit. This was the smell I experienced each time the beings took me. If these beings are truly of an extraterrestrial origin, it would make sense for the craft to be made out of anti-magnetic materials. Otherwise, one would have an extremely hard time navigating and gaining an accurate reading of acceleration and direction, among other things. As I continued on in my life, the memories kept coming. Bright, Indiana, Cincinnati, Ohio, Vandenberg, California, Georgia, Ohio, Mississippi, Michigan, locations that are thousands of miles apart, all across the United States, spanning from the age of 12 to 36. I finished serving and got married and had a daughter. Eventually my marriage broke down and ended in divorce. These events caused me to develop what are called non-epileptic psychogenic seizures. Any time I was stressed or heard a high-pitched noise, I would start having seizures. I ran the gamut of tests from a neurologist to find out what they were. I lost my job and my home and ended up being taken back in by my parents. This all happened in the past 12 months. I now live in Farmington, Michigan. One night I went to sleep and then awoke in a small metal chamber with green light. The door quickly opened and I was pulled out by them. I realized there were 5 of them just standing around me. I began scrambling backwards on the floor, and in the stress of the moment, I started seizing. It was then that I felt them hold me down roughly and shove a rather long needle into my neck, right behind the jaw and below the ear. The seizure subsided and I blacked out. The next morning I woke up lying on top of the covers. Was it just a dream? I decided to see if sounds or stress could still trigger a seizure. They did not. Suddenly I was free from them, with no worldly explanation. This, of course, came as a noticeable change to my friends and family, who are still very confused as to how I am suddenly cured. I have never told any of them about the dream out of fear of being labelled crazy. I feel that the curing of the seizures was not out of goodwill, but as a way to stop any hindrance to whatever it is that they are doing to me. In the months that followed, they still visited me. After my visit fixing the seizures, I awoke one night to several of them standing in the room near my bed. My daughter was next to me, and I put myself between them and her, but one of them raised a hand, and I blacked out. Who are they, and why did they choose me? I honestly have no real clue. I sometimes ponder if it was where I was born that led to all this. I was born in a town called Ipswich in the United Kingdom. My father served in the Air Force as well and was stationed there in the 80s. I was born in 83. I know there was quite a bit of UFO activity in Suffolk during that time period, and so I wonder if that was what started this whole series of events. My father used to speak of strange happenings in that region, as well as paranormal activity he experienced in our house and on the base. Whether something happened during my time in the United Kingdom, I do not know. The only thing I can remotely link to is that my mother was not supposed to be able to have any more children and somehow became pregnant with twins. My brother died during the pregnancy. Whether these beings are humans in suits, I have no clue. With how blurry most of my memories are and all of the bright lights and with never being talked to, I could not tell you with 100% certainty whether they are another species or people in disguise. My gut says another species, especially with the technology that was demonstrated. None of the tools present ever seemed to have a man-made look to them, except for the needles. But how different can those truly be across the universe? A few months ago I started working night shifts. Now that I work all through the night, I no longer have to worry about a visit at night. Now, as far as I know, the visitations have stopped. I have, however, had 2 oddities with time loss recently. The first, I was heading into a gas station to get a drink when things became very blurry and distorted for me. Next thing I know, I'm standing at the drink section and there are pricks in the end of my right pointer and middle fingers, blood pouring down my hand. Needless to say, the blood drew some attention, and so I left as quickly as I could. The most recent one was on the 3rd of March at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. I was sitting in my room and I looked down at my phone and everything went blurry again. When things returned to normal, it was 4:23. I have remained filled with anxiety ever since. I am constantly jumpy and am feeling paranoid to say the least. I have thought about setting up a security camera, but in honesty, I am afraid of what I may see. If these thoughts stay purely in my head, a part of me can say that maybe it didn't happen. The thought of it being completely solidified in reality is terrifying. In sharing my story, please keep my identity anonymous. I have no interest in drawing attention to myself over this. I am not sure how it is received where you live, but here it would lead to a lot of ridicule and affect other aspects of my life which I cannot afford as I take care of my wife and child. My name is Conrad and I'm from Stirling, Scotland. I currently live in a small village just outside called Deanston. On the 24th of December 2019, at around 5:30 in the morning, I went out to walk my dog. There is a lade that runs through the village to the whiskey distillery, and it was on the path that runs alongside the lade that I found myself walking that morning. I reached the large black gate that blocks anyone from walking towards the dam, turned around and started walking back the way I'd come. As I did, I looked up to the sky and saw a bright, glowing white object. I thought nothing of it to begin with, but then, as I walked, I noticed it was getting closer. There were no stars in the sky and the moon was out, but this object was not the moon. Scared it was going to disappear before I could video it on my phone, I snapped 5 quick photos, and after I'd done this, I pressed record on my phone. The thing was far away, so I was a little disappointed, but as I walked closer, the object came into better view. It looked like a circle spinning high in the sky. It was spinning so fast, and the face of the circle had what looked like carvings or some sort of design. It must have either been further away than I thought, or it moved, because when I got back to the village, it was gone, over the trees, and I haven't seen it since. I took pictures of the moon that night for comparison's sake. You can see the moon was far bigger. I can't tell you what it was, but going by my video and the pictures, the object in question must have been a large distance away. It wasn't a Chinese lantern or a plane or helicopter. The object I saw was a circle. The object I saw is unexplained. My name is Trey and I'm 34 years old. The experience I'm about to describe happened in the summer of 2016 in Broomfield, Colorado. At this time I was living with my band, oddly enough called Sees Things. We were renting a house together. My bassist, Bradley, and I were sitting on our back deck having some beers. It was around 1 a.m. Neither of us were drunk and we were quietly enjoying the night. I started noticing a light shining over and down onto some homes on the street behind ours. A long, tall, flat white beam of light was sweeping over several houses until it finally reached the one directly behind ours. Observing the bizarre thing more closely, I saw that the beam was being emitted by a craft, about 50 or 60 meters above the house. It stopped as it scanned the entirety of the house. The craft looked to be about 25 meters long and reminded me very strongly of the Reaper vessels from the Mass Effect video game series, ovular in shape, with what looked like 3 tentacles at the bottom, which were equally as long as the ovular portion. The beam of light was being emitted from the center of the 3 tentacles. I can't, in human words, describe the pure, absolute terror I felt in the pit of my stomach. There was no doubt in my mind that what I was looking at was not made by humanity, and they appeared to be scanning sleeping families in their homes in a subdivision. As these thoughts raced through my head, the thing started to float in our direction. I watched this craft and the wall of white light coming from it go over and across my backyard, up to where we were sitting and our house. The beam slowly passed through the awning on our deck and, then, straight through our bodies. I felt an awful wave of nausea as it went through me. I remember looking at Bradley in horror. After that, we both stood up and ran to the edge of the deck to look above our house. I looked just in time to see this thing take off in an easterly direction at incredible speed and completely silent. About 30 seconds passed before a low-flying black helicopter flew right over our house. That was also almost completely silent, save for some muffled chopper blade sound whizzing by in the same direction that the UFO went. On the bottom, or maybe the front tip, of the helicopter, there was a tiny red light that made me imagine it was infrared or something similar. When I saw that helicopter, the first thing I thought was that it looked like someone was very aware of what went on here tonight. They seemed to be keeping tabs on it, on the UFO. I have never seen a helicopter behaving like this, or flying that low since. After all this madness, Bradley and I woke up everyone in the house. By the time we roused them, it was over, but we were still flipping out. Crazy things happened in the weeks that followed. For weeks, I would wake up every night at 3 a.m, feeling completely convinced that someone had broken into our house. I'd grab my bat, search the house and check the windows and doors, but everything would be locked and everyone was always asleep. Very strange and uncomfortable. What is worse is Bradley kept telling me about these horrifying dreams he was having. Dreams about aliens coming into our house, and him trying to shoot them, but his guns wouldn't work. He also said he dreamt a fleshy craft was floating in our backyard at our deck. In another dream, he said creatures looking like humans came from space and were giving humans injections to, so they said in the dream, protect them from infections that humans may be weak against, brought by us. Bradley said in his dream he denied the injection, only to be picked up by the shoulders by a being wearing a heavy cloak, standing 3 heads taller than him. It lifted its hood. He told me it had a face, but he couldn't see it because his right eye was shining like a headlight and was so hypnotic that it was all that he could see. It spoke to him in his mind and said, "We gave you this planet and life and you have ruined it. You have failed." Every time he told me about these dreams, he had tears streaming down his face. I don't know what to make of any of this, but it still fills me with despair and unspeakable horror when I think about what may have happened, or possibly could be continuing to happen to us without any way to know about it or remember. Last we spoke, the dreams were still going on for Bradley. I moved away from Colorado about a year afterwards, and have not experienced waking up like I did before since. This is one of the strangest things I have seen in the sky. Extremely unsettling, to say the very least. Thank you for listening, and thank you to those who have so kindly and courageously allowed me to narrate their experiences. Also, an extra special thank you to our members, both here on YouTube and on Patreon. Members, don't forget you can vote in our poll, active now, to pick our next video's topic. And if you are not a member and would like to become one, you can find out more by following the links in the description. As well as being able to vote for our next video, membership also gives you access to commercial-free videos and unlimited streaming of our 2-hour documentary on life after death, In Search of the Dead. However you choose to support this channel, member or not, we are extremely appreciative. Thank you all. Until next time.